Hello, and welcome to Zonie Living. Our guest today believes that every act of business can be an act of love. Spiritual business teacher Mark Silver speaks to those who want to approach business, a business that can be nourishing as well as successful and powerful. His new book is Heart-Centered Business, Healing from Toxic Business Culture so your small business can thrive. It's a refreshing guide for how to conduct business in the 21st century that is gentle, healthy, and effective. Mark Silver is on the line with us right now.
Hello. Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. And where are you coming to us from?
Central Pennsylvania near Harrisburg.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's so great to have you here. I very much enjoyed your book. I want to set the stage. Help us understand what you mean by a toxic business culture. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's could have a whole book just about that, right? It's over the last few centuries, business has really done a number on us in humanity, and I think that so many of us are familiar with really painful outcomes of business done horribly, where profit is put ahead of taking care of people, taking care of communities, taking care of each other, of our jobs. We see people stuffing their pockets with unethical amounts of profit while people can't afford housing and can't afford food, and it's all about greed. It's all about um, and this is the path that business has led us down. It doesn't have to be that way. It's really something that's happened more recently in human history. There's been a lot of other ways that we've done commerce and trade historically, but it's been really painful, and it's not working for many of us.
Well, Mark, I love how you meld spirituality into the nitty gritty of small business operations. Obviously, we're in business to make money, to earn a living. That's one of our bottom line goals. But one of your chapters is called Healing Your Relationship with Money. You suggest that it's important for us to understand our personal stories regarding money. So, Mark, you've coached thousands of entrepreneurs around the world through your Heart of Business organization. Do we all have a difficult relationship with money? And what are some of the common money relationship problems that you've encountered
It's
in your business?
It's a really good question because we do all have, mainly because the way money is done in our culture is dysfunctional. I don't think it's possible to have a truly healthy relationship with money. We can have a healthier relationship with money, but until we change the overall culture and the systems involved with it, there's always going to be an element of injustice or disconnection or unfairness to it. But what we can do is we can face our beliefs, we can face the stories that we have, and that can provide us with sometimes personal power and insight that allows us to make choices that are healthier both for us and for the people that we care about. So, um, for instance, I remember this was years and years ago, back at the beginning of Heart of Business, where I was coaching someone with a very small business, and she was really struggling to make enough money, to charge enough money to get clients, and she wasn't really allowing herself to be loved, really. I mean, there's a lot of details there and story there, but that was the essence. And so she kept pushing people away, she kept pushing money away, and when she started to open her heart for her individually in her particular story, as she let herself receive more love, access more love, feel more cared for, then she was able to make choices that didn't harm other people. It wasn't about, like, okay, now I'm going to get it and you're not,
Right.
but she could be included in the flow, and she could accept a sustainable price. She could ask people for money. She could ask people who really wanted to work with her to work with her. And that shift was not everything that made her business sustainable, but it was a major turning point for her.
Yeah, I am sure that is a very common feeling. Well, you address emotional discomfort. It seems anxiety just comes with the territory when we're talking about being a small business owner. But you write, we can't live in a state of upset and anxiety, and that our nervous systems do need soothing. Can you explain how sitting with emotional discomfort can add balm to our hearts and soothe our
Yeah.
nervous system? I'd love to hear that.
Well, so one of the things that I've seen on my spiritual path is that I've come to learn and to understand that one of the most important capacities that we can develop as a human being is the ability to be with challenging emotions without trying to immediately get rid of them or um, get away from them or shut them down, which is a lot of what consumer culture wants us to do. Like, have a tub of ice cream or go spend money instead of being with a difficult emotion. Now,
Mm,
I'm not talking about allowing yourself to be in harm's way or continue to be in an abusive situation. I don't, like there's important lines here to understand. But there are a lot of places where if we allow ourselves the space, we learn how to develop that capacity to be with difficult emotions. It enables us to look more closely instead of being reactive and saying, okay, for instance, I know that I need to sell, but selling is horrible, so I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it in the way that this gross person taught me how to do it.
mm,
Instead, we can lean in and go, okay, this is really uncomfortable, but I wonder, is love available even here? Is there a way to do sales
mm.
with integrity that's still effective
Yeah.
without being manipulative? And when people do that, when they let themselves go through the gateway of these difficult emotions, then they can start to go, oh, I don't have to do it that way. I can do it this way. I can give people space. I don't have to try to push people to purchase so quickly. I can trust them. I can give them space to think. And then there's more to it than that, of course. I'm just, broad outlines. But then they can find a way. And this is I found to be true in every aspect of business, that when we can lean in through the difficult emotions and find the love, allow our nervous systems to be soothed, not by turning away, not by distracting ourselves, but by finding true healing, by finding a true sense of connection in our heart, then we can always find a pathway through that really does work without harm.
Well, I love how you explain that. I feel calmer already. And you did mention your spiritual path. Can you briefly share that with us?
Yeah, so I am a student of Islamic Sufism. I'm a student of my Sheikh Sidi Mohammed, who died back in 2015. He was from Jerusalem, little Palestinian man who taught tens of thousands of Sufi students around the globe. And Sufism is the mystical approach to Islam. Most people in English-speaking countries have heard of the poet Rumi
Hmm.
and his amazing poetry about love and the presence of love. Rumi is one of the most famous Sufis historically, and Sufism has to do with exactly this. Like, how do we find the presence of the divine, the source of love, not a beard in the sky, not an otherness, but a oneness from which we are not separate? How do we find the presence of love in absolutely everything? And again, this is not bypassing, not putting on rose-colored glasses, not saying, "Oh, it's all from love and it's all okay." Sometimes we need to respond to injustice, and we need to respond to pain, and we need to help those who need help. But we can find the love in the situation, and that helps to guide our hearts. It helps us to bring a better way through and to be a part of a solution, a part of um, making the world a better place rather than just getting caught up in the fighting and the drama.
Yeah, boy, I love that. We sure need it. And in reading your book, I feel like we were all trained at some point to use words that nobody really understands when we might describe what our business is all about and what we do, even if they sound impressive. And we may not be connecting with our customers either. And that's why I love you came up with one compelling sentence, this concept. What does that look like? And how do you coach clients to find their one compelling sentence?
Yeah. So the one compelling sentence is a place where a lot of people do uh, get stuck in answering the question, so what do you do? And then
Mm-hmm.
people want to talk about what they actually do. And most people actually don't want to hear the details. Like if you're like, what do you do? It's like, well, I could go into all kinds of esoteric Sufi healing, or I could go into the mechanics of business development. But people really want to know, like, is this relevant to me? Do I belong? Are you in line with my values? Am I going to have to be somebody different? And so what we try to do with folks is we help them kind of shift from seeing things from their perspective to trying to really see things from the client's perspective. It's one
Mm-hmm.
of the biggest shifts that someone can make. And when they do, and we can help them say, okay, so instead of saying, you do this thing, say, I help these people. Like a chiropractor could say, I help people who have had really devastating back injuries who just want to get back to the active life that they had. And what happens is people recognize themselves. It's almost like
Mm.
calling somebody's name instead of boring them with some kind of esoteric or complicated or unknown type of service.
Sure. I guess the hint is if you watch somebody's eyes glaze over, you're not doing it well. You,
It's not going to help. It's not going to
you're
help,
not going to win
right?
clients. Well, you discuss also crafting your first offer. So you share the secret, and I love this. You say people don't really want to buy what you're selling. What they want is to arrive somewhere. Are you talking about an experience? They want an experience?
Well, I mean, that can be part of it, but it's really, so if I go into a restaurant, yes, I may want like I don't necessarily want, the carbohydrates and the protein and the sugar or whatever's involved. I'm hungry and I want to feel full. I want to feel satisfied. I want to feel nourished. I want to have deliciousness in my mouth. I don't want to feel heavy. Like there's a sense of I want to arrive somewhere. Like when somebody, especially a lot of the people we work with are service-based businesses, and they, um, they're helping people with something that they're stuck with. And so instead of saying, "Hey, I want to sell you a session or I want to sell you this modality," I I'm I think I know where you want to get. Like the example I used earlier, you had an active life. You could pick up your kids, um, you could dance, you could do physical activity, you could engage with sports, whatever it is that you love to do, but you've hurt your back. I want to get you back there. I'm not going to sell you time on my table adjustments. Like that's how we're going to get there. But what I'm really wanting to do is I'm wanting to help you arrive back at your ability to be able to pick up your child or to be able to go
Mm.
dancing without ending up on the floor in horrific pain. And
Yeah.
so this is again another shift towards being client focused, where you're really seeing what people are wanting rather than trying to just sell the modality or the process or the thing that you have in your hand.
Yeah, you touch on that with marketing, and I love how you describe this. You say the true purpose of marketing is safety, and safety arises out of being seen. You explain that in your book, and you write if your business is defined by whom you help and what you help them with, then your business is focused on seeing your audience and helping them, which really feeds the human desire to be of service. You say a business is not defined by what it does, but by who it helps and the challenges it helps customers with. So you've been talking about that. I don't know if you have another example of what that means. That marketing can be a safe tool for people.
Yeah. Well, so anybody who's had to work with marketing comes across the idea that, oh, you need to speak to people's pain points, right? And when you speak to people's pain points, you can do it in a way that is really re-traumatizing. A lot of
Mm.
marketing today is really just poking people's pain points, creating a level of activation and saying, if you buy from me, that activation will be soothed. I mean, it's a very manipulative way of
Wow.
dealing with it. It's really common, and it's really terrible. It's terrible for the hearts. It's terrible for people. Um, it's why people have such a negative, legitimately negative reaction to marketing. Marketing that's done from safety, yes, we want to speak to pain points because that's what people are experiencing. But if we can see people, really see people as whole, as not lacking, as beautiful and perfect, but they're having challenges, then people can feel witnessed in a way that allows them to take a breath and say, oh, wow, you see my struggle. And when someone really sees us in our struggle and doesn't kind of poke at us, it enables us to take a breath. It enables us to relax. Our own business, we help people who really want to make a difference in the world. That's why they got into business, is they wanted to make the world a better place. And then they need to make a profit. Like they need to make money, and they feel overwhelmed and exhausted by business, and
Mm.
they don't know how to do it without either harming themselves or harming other people. And it feels it feels like just a mess. And I just want to say that it's true. A lot of business really is a mess, and those feelings are really legitimate. Like, we don't want anybody to have to get over that. And so when,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
no, and I was just going to say, like, when we communicate from that place, hopefully people feel soothed rather than poked.
Well, I have this urge to watch TV commercials with you and sort of go through and dissect, what ones make me feel good and what ones don't make me feel so good, and sort of decide how and why. But I also love how you talk about a divine calling. A divine calling is to express the qualities of your heart to the world and to find love in every little thing. I think that's so beautiful, and that made me feel, when we can actually feel when love is poured into something. And I think one of my best examples is when you taste something that's homemade, and the chef may say because it's made with love, and you can feel it. It's a tangible thing. Talk a little bit about that.
Um, yes, I mean, from my experience, I agree entirely that love is real. Love is real.
Yeah.
It's not just an idea. It's not just a syrupy greeting card. I Love is real. It's a quality that exists in things, and that quality can either be veiled or hidden or distorted or covered over, or it can be poured in, and it can be right out there. And food is a perfect example. We can totally tell when food is made with love and care versus when it's done without that. And so when we think about business, we can tell if someone is doing something with love. And love is the attractor. Love is where attraction comes from. It's why we talk about marketing as safety, because when we try to manufacture love is when things feel weird. When you try to like make things attractive. Anybody who's tried to do like, oh, what can I do to make sure that people come here and do this thing? Like that in anyone I've had a conversation with about that, there's a tightening in the heart or the belly, and it starts to feel gross. But if we start thinking like, okay, I really care about people, how can I help them feel safe to know that they can take a look and decide for themselves whether this is something they need or not?
Sure.
It lifts a weight, right? It
And
makes it easier to approach.
yeah, and we can sure feel that authenticity when somebody really is in business to take care of other people while they're making a living. I also enjoyed your explanation about the need for a website and how your website can serve people on demand. And I like how you called this nourishing those waiting. And you have a great street side cafe analogy. Would you please share that with us?
Yeah. So one of the most I kind of underestimated dynamics in business is how long it takes someone to make a significant purchasing decision. And there is no single phrase or no marketing campaign, unless it's extremely manipulative and hard sell, that makes someone just organically jump from completely cold to, yes, I want to buy. People take time to make decisions.
Hmm.
Having a website, having other kinds of marketing presence in the, in the in the um, in the world, and helps people relax. So like if you have a street side cafe, for instance, this has happened to me so many times. I'll pass a restaurant. We've got a restaurant here in central Pennsylvania, Mechanicsburg. Um, we drove past it, I don't know, 5, 10 times. It was on our route. And after the 10th time, I don't know how many times we drove past it, I turned to my wife, or she turned to me, and it's like, you know what, we should go check that restaurant out. Like we should, like it looks like a place that we want to try. But it was that repeated contact with it. Driving past it once isn't, wouldn't have done it. Even the second or third time, it's a surprising amount of contact that's needed. And this is true for nearly any business.
Yeah, yeah, and you talk about a garden path and describe that a little bit. And I think what you're talking about is other things that I might find when I go to your website that might introduce me more to what you do and who you help and all the services that you offer. Is that right on?
Yeah, so a lot of times, in one of the industry terms in business development is funnel, which refers to this idea that, okay, well, first you sell them something cheap, and then you've hooked them, and then you can sell them something more expensive, and then more expensive and more expensive, and keep
Ouch.
upselling them.
Sounds
And
painful.
yeah, and it's not even how people tend to, like, we've observed our own clients over decades, like 23 years we've been doing business, and we find that that's not really people's purchasing patterns. So what we think about it in terms of a garden path, meaning that there has to be some kind of an entry into the business. There's something that, people connect with, and then once they're in the garden, rather than trying to force them, it's like, okay, we're going to give you a tomato, and then we're going to give you a cucumber, and then, it's like, well, once you're in, we treat our clients as if they're adults, that can make their
What a
own choices.
concept.
And
Yeah.
we don't want to offer too much, because that can be a little overwhelming, and it can make it hard for us to differentiate. But when we have a few offers and we're saying, okay, so, what meets your needs? What is it that you're needing? What is it that you're struggling with? What is it that you're needing help with? This offers for this, and this offers for that. And that I find is a much more sustainable way to be with people over the long term. And the
Mm,
garden path in particular also speaks to how, in a garden, plants grow next to each other. You plant the basil near the tomatoes because they help each other. A healthy business, most businesses that are healthy are built on repeat business. You don't want to
sure.
do, slash and burn tactics where you manipulate somebody to buy something, and then they're pissed off and they never come back.
Right.
Instead, if you can have offers in your garden that help people go, okay, yeah, I'm ready for the next one. Okay, this has built trust. I want to stick around. And if people stick around for a reasonable amount of time, you don't have to spend so much time and energy creating relationships with so many people. Instead, you can build a business on many fewer people, because they're sticking around, because they're working with you for a longer period of time. It's that repeat business is a profitable, healthy, sustainable business.
And what a gentle way to do business. There's a chapter that hit home for me so strongly, for many people I know as well. It's called Signs of Depletion. You first noticed this pattern in 1999 and mostly in women. So I really want people to hear this. You say depletion is dangerous. So, Mark, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I think that it's oh my goodness. So this culture does not like us to rest. And it
Thank you.
doesn't
It's not just the voices in my head.
no, it doesn't like us to rest. There's this push. It's like you have to do more, you have to do more, you have to do
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
And it hits everybody, but it hits some people harder than others. It hits people of color, it hits women. Sexism and racism are real, and
Mm,
they
still, yeah.
they're exhausting. They put additional burdens. We're all exhausted. I'm a white middle-aged man, and I'm exhausted. And but I see the sexism that my wife has to deal with. I
Mm,
see, friends of mine who are black or Latino, I see the racism that they have to deal with, and
yeah.
it's exhausting. And so we don't want to, and we don't have to recreate our business on that level of exhaustion, like on that level of like, oh, I've got to push, push, push. That the
Mhm.
story in the entrepreneurial world is you've got to hustle, you got to push, you got to go 24/7, or you'll never be successful. And that's just not true. In fact, it's actually going to keep you from being successful, because when you're exhausted, you're less creative. When you're exhausted, you're not able to listen carefully to the signs and to catch the miracles. When you're exhausted, it's hard to really be present with the people that are approaching you. And that's how deeper relationships are formed. That's how trust is built. That's how businesses and relationships and communities develop, is when we have the spaciousness and the restfulness in ourselves to actually have room for connection.
Yeah, I love that. That's something to certainly keep at the forefront of doing business. As a foundational element of a business, you write about cultivating awareness of your jewel. So, what is your jewel? What is our
Yeah.
jewel?
So a jewel. So um, uh, I'll try not to take 20 years teaching this spiritual teaching. But
Thank you.
so there's a no. So the jewel from a Sufi perspective is that in our heart we carry all the divine qualities like love and wisdom and compassion and strength and knowledge and gentleness, and like there's so many divine qualities, and we carry all of them, but they need to be developed, they need to be uncovered in us, is at least from a Sufi belief. And what my teacher taught me that I've really seen to be true is that each of us carries a particular quality that, like, if you were to have a gemstone that has different facets on it, there's one in particular that kind of faces forward. There's one quality that, of all of them, that is particularly strong, and it's the quality that we thirst for, and it's also the quality that we give most easily. And it's because we give it easily, sometimes it's a quality of listening, or it's a quality of peace, or it's a quality of love, or it's a quality of strength. People have, it's not that we don't have other qualities, of course, like I said, we're complex beings, but there's something that's central. And when we can receive that quality, when we become aware of it and we can fill with it, then it becomes much easier to give in our life, and including in our business, like a rain barrel overflowing, rather than trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel as somebody who's exhausted, thinking that
Mm,
we just have to give, instead of, we can receive and be full and then give from a place of fullness. And that jewel really helps other people connect with their own hearts, even if it's done silently. It's a profound experience when you become aware of it and you walk with it.
well, I like how you say, even if it's done silently, because I think, you know, uh, so much is done on cameras and over Zoom, and there is something about being in the same space with somebody. Wouldn't you agree?
I absolutely agree. Nothing can replace that in-person presence, that where we can actually feel each other's presence, like
Hmm.
our spiritual presence. However, I learned years ago when I was first being trained as a spiritual healer, that time and space are a little flexible. I've for years I've been leading with our clients virtual retreats every other month where we do conference calls and we'll do heart connecting practices together and spend the day, not not the whole day on Zoom, God forbid, but it would be exhausting. But we come together and connect, and then and people have they feel they we feel the presence of the group, even though we're all individuals or all over the world. It's surprising. At the same time, I'm absolutely agreeing with you. Nothing replaces the in-person presence, and I wouldn't want to. There's also something very profound that can happen in in a connection through a virtual medium.
Sure. Well, time and space, I can get lost in the thought of what time and space really means. And yes, and absolutely hearing each other's voices and seeing each other's expressions, we can feel the mirror neurons as well. And there are so many healthy suggestions in this book, the one that you wrote. I like the humor that you had in there too. And you write, just because you're looking at a mountain range doesn't mean you have to climb it right now or even this afternoon. So
I was talking to myself. Did I say that out loud?
I
There's
love
a
that.
um, I have a very I'm a very practical person. My spiritual background is something that I was kind of dragged into because I needed it. And, I was a paramedic for years. I like doing woodworking. We like doing, gardening. I like having my hands doing things that are very practical. And so when I get an idea, my personality wants to implement it. And it's so good. Like, especially gardening has really helped me. And I guess, also raising our kids and watching how many years it takes them to develop. We planted fruit trees, this property that we're on, and it's been several years. And just this year was the first year we got a few peaches from the peach tree. But I know that, in the next few years, there'll probably be more peaches than we can possibly eat, if we can keep them healthy. The same goes for a business. People have been told, and the speed of the internet and a lot of exaggerations in some people's marketing says you could build a business rapidly. But what we've seen is that to take it from startup, like a tiny business, like a lot of the people we work with, can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years to go from complete startup through to a stage that I call momentum, where you can really depend on it. And that can feel a little, I don't know, depressing at first, but really most people feel a great sense of relief, like, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. It just takes time. It just takes time. There's enough to put in place, um, and to do it with care and to do it and then correct it. I mean, how many times do we do something for the first time or the second time or the third time and we do it at all well? It takes time
Yeah.
to learn how to do something both with care and with effectiveness. And so we're constantly working with our clients to have kindness towards themselves and persistence, and to try to break things down into very bite-sized steps so they don't harm themselves while they're building their business. And the surprising truth is, of course, you move faster that way. um, uh, but that's yeah, exactly. Like climbing a mountain, like taking it on immediately in a day is just, it's not healthy. It's not human. It's not possible. And by facing that reality, we find a much easier, more natural path in developing our businesses.
Mark, you give us so much permission in your book, to take our time, to make the steps strong as we go. And I love how there's so many times where I'm reading along and you'll go, and if it takes this, well, that's okay. You say that's okay, and you just give us encouragement, and we're not like failures right out of the chute. You also talk about your business is a live thing. Now, I love that a lot, and I've always believed that your business has a heart. And according to the Sufis, everything that exists is an expression of the divine. So you write that every human, every animal, every plant, every rock, everything is an expression of the oneness. I believe this deeply, but I don't believe I've ever seen it written in a business leadership book. So it is so refreshing to hear that. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm not trying to turn people into Sufis. There's not any evangelical part of my religion at all, of my spiritual path.
And that's
Um,
okay.
so yeah, I go, oh, thank
Using your
goodness.
words.
Yeah, but it's a, but if you accept the idea that everything comes from the oneness, that everything is part of a oneness, that there's a non-dual nature to our reality, at source, then how could anything not be an expression of that? Like where would it come from if it doesn't come from love, if it doesn't come from some essence, and uh, the source of love, what some people call the divine or the oneness or the universe or God, or there's so many different names from so many different cultures and ways of conceiving of this thing that's larger than us. But that has to include everything. And so that includes businesses, includes projects, includes ideas. These things come from somewhere. It's not like all of this stuff is from the divine, but this business isn't. It's over here somewhere. I mean, it doesn't,
Right. It doesn't
that,
make
that
sense.
doesn't, it doesn't make sense. So from this perspective, um, and so when we really open our hearts to that reality, and experience it, then our clients start taking time being in relationship with the heart of their business,
Mhm.
asking the heart of their business questions in remembrance and meditation and prayer and, various types of, whatever, whenever they take quiet time to really listen. And they get surprising answers that resonate deeply and that give them guidance that is right, and helpful and powerful. And so it's something that I really want to encourage all of us to do, is to to listen at that deeper level, to take the time and to hear what's wanting to be communicated to us from everything, from
Mm.
everywhere, including our businesses.
Well, you know what I love about that especially is it doesn't separate us out as this is my personal life, this is my professional life, this is something over here that I don't think about when I'm doing over this. I mean, we're this whole being. And so that's what it makes me feel like. And all these things that are in our world are we're connected to them in some way. And I just love that. If you think of them as a live thing, I think it makes us more gracious, more appreciative, and happier. Feeling like things are working with us, like our computer and our car, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And, going back to the beginning of the conversation, when we were talking about toxic business culture, this is one of the places where business culture became so toxic, is because there was this belief that business was separate,
Separate,
that business
yeah.
wasn't alive, that the world isn't alive, that we can just use the world for our own needs
Mm,
instead of being in relationship. We can just take whatever we want. We can cut down trees, we can mine, we can create pollution, just to put more money in our pockets. And it's not that there shouldn't be science and discovery and advancement, but to do that devoid of any care or love for the world around us, I wouldn't want to treat another person that way.
hmm
I certainly don't want to treat, all of my relations that way in terms of the trees and the ground and the land around me or our animals.
hmm
It's a form of, I think it's a form of insanity for Western culture to believe so strongly that these things can be used
hmm
and that there's nothing to be in relationship with there. And
mm.
I think that that's a lot of what we really need to do, is um, heal that perspective.
Mark, your book, Heart Centered Business, it's practical, it's also spiritual. And I truly believe it's something that the world needs now, something we've been yearning for. And I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and being with us today. So appreciate it.
I'm so delighted. Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Thanks, Mark. As we mentioned, Mark Silver is a spiritual business leader. He is the author of 7 books and the founder of Heart of Business. His latest book, Heart Centered Business Healing from Toxic Business Culture So Your Small Business Can Thrive, is available on Amazon. Read more about Mark Silver at flagstaffbusinessnews.com. There are so many gems in this book, But I'll leave you with this. Mark writes, to accept your limits and insist on a healthy pace and workload is a pathway for a sustainable life. It's the path to living in alignment with your deepest heart. It's the journey that makes space for love to flourish. It's the nourishment you need to be both successful and joyful. This is Zonie Living, Business, Adventure, and Leadership. I'm Bonnie Stevens.